Welcome back to the Cox 11 Sports Report. At this time, we're now joined by the state football editor of VirginiaPreps.com. That is Rod Johnson. Rod, thanks for stopping by.
Sure, love being here.
You've done all this hard work from the offseason, those hot days of August. We're now in the state championship games here in December. You've got two teams from our area moving on. You were at the Lake Taylor North Stafford game. Tell me your thoughts from that game.
It was absolutely an incredible game. I mean, the fight back and forth between the two teams. North Stafford obviously landing those first big punches in the first half. But then Lake Taylor showed a lot of resolve, a lot of grit, did a great job in the second half, made some adjustments, and then when they needed plays down the stretch, they got a couple of big ones from their guys, Delman Williams, Jalen Holmes, and Brandon Porchop-Moore. Those three guys really came through. It was an entire team effort and a great job by the Titans to get to the state championship games.
And Ocean Lakes on this side of the things for them. They're starting quarterback Corwin Cutler. They've played without him the last few weeks. They get up big, hold on late. Just defense has been the story for them all year long.
Yeah, I think that's been the story in the Eastern region for the two teams, both Ocean Lakes and Lake Taylor. It's their defensive effort first, with the offenses being explosive, and then just the determination that each of them has overcome some of the odds that they face this year. Lake Taylor in beating a Phoebus team that's a four-time champion. Ocean Lakes in beating an Oscar Smith team that's perennially one of the best in the area, and then for each to advance to the championship game, showing a lot of grit in their state semifinals.
Before we preview these matchups, you see Lake Taylor taking on Stonebridge at 12:07 on December the 8th at Scott Stadium, UVA. Also the Division VI game, Ocean Lakes playing LC Bird at 4:07 on that same day at UVA. What players from Ocean Lakes and Lake Taylor can really make themselves an all-state performer with a big performance on Saturday?
Well, I think at Ocean Lakes you start with defensive tackle Derek Noddy from from the Dolphins front line. He's a fantastic player and been a guy that's been dominant all season. For Lake Taylor, Delman Williams has certainly had a great year at quarterback, Brandon Moore at running back, and then I'd also look at Jalen Holmes on the defensive line.
Let's look at these two games. Start out with the Division V game. Lake Taylor taking on Stonebridge, who's their arch nemesis for these last years has been Phoebus. Now they get Lake Taylor. How different are the challenges for Stonebridge playing Lake Taylor as opposed to Phoebus, and what do they present to the Titans?
Yeah, it's an interesting championship Saturday because this is the first time since the divisions have split into Division V and Division VI back in 1986. This will be the first time that four undefeated teams have advanced to that championship.
Really?
Lake Taylor and Stonebridge is going to be a pretty epic battle. Both of those teams have been basically 1 and 2 in our rankings all season long. Very similar styles in that they like to run the ball, but can throw deep on play action. Defenses are fantastic. Superstars in this game. Stanford commit quarterback Ryan Burns for Stonebridge. Jonathan Allen on the defensive end side for the Bulldogs is going to the University of Alabama. So a bunch of big-name players in this one. Should be a game where whichever team can run the ball a little bit better should have an advantage, but the passing games are really going to be what makes the big factor, I think.
Yeah, kind of interesting because you think of these two teams as hard-hitting, hard-nosed defensive teams, but they can both air it out quite a bit. In the game between Ocean Lakes and LC Bird, you have Ocean Lakes with its dominating defensive front with McGill and Noddy, you've touched on quite a bit, taking on an LC Bird team with a state record setter at running back in Paul Robertson.
Yeah, and it's a lot like the Division V game where we've got two teams with similar styles. Even though they do it out of different formations, the two teams love to power run and count on their offensive lines to control the game and their defensive front seven to stop the other team from running. So another game where there's going to be a play or two here or there that makes a difference. But again, two undefeated teams, both fantastic on defense. So it's going to come down to just, either dumb luck or just a play bouncing the right way for either team.
Now, this is the last year under the current VHSL system we have for the playoffs. The new classification settings go into effect next year. What's your opinion of the new format?
Well, I think there's some change in that they're going strictly by enrollment next year. So previously you had divided up by regions where the regions determined if you were 6 or 5. Now it's going to be statewide by enrollment. So it should level the playing field a little bit for some of the areas. Still going to have 6 state champions just like this year, so there's not a huge change in there. But the interesting thing will be they're dividing the state in half rather than into quadrants. So you'll get some matchups that maybe you haven't seen before in the playoffs. You'll get some teams from Richmond playing some teams from Virginia Beach in that first and second round. Should create a little bit of a new excitement because you're not seeing teams play each other for a second time after they've played in the regular season and then meeting up in the postseason. So it should be a pretty good deal to watch those teams kind of travel and see how they match up different regions, different parts of the state against each other.
Couple more for you and we'll let you go, and we appreciate your time. Recruiting tidbit to pass along. Khalid Abdullah, the running back of Heritage, becomes the second Peninsula District running back to commit to James Madison as he joined Cardon Johnson, his good friend from Warwick High School. As you look at the years UVA and Virginia Tech had, not the greatest of seasons. JMU getting some good recruits. Old Dominion moving to Conference USA here pretty soon. Does it allow them an opportunity to get some of those players that UVA and Tech have gotten in the past?
I think so, because those teams are able to sell a lot right now. James Madison now probably becomes the premier 1AA team in the state. Certainly Richmond and William & Mary will have something to say about that. Old Dominion moving up a level kind of enhances their reputation with kids regionally. And then, of course, you know, Virginia Tech and Virginia have to rely a little bit on Virginia Tech on their history and Virginia on what they're trying to build. So you could see some things slip. I think those two schools face more of a problem with teams coming in from out of the state trying to cherry pick the top level talent that we have, where kids are going to look a lot at the SEC and even USC and some of the West Coast and Big Ten teams coming in. One
of the coaches that gets a lot of players to the next level, Darnell Moore at Bayside, has stepped down as head coach. He won a couple state titles at Wilson as well. You surprised by his move to step down?
No, I think he had kind of hinted about it here in the last year or two. Certainly a guy that still has the energy to coach and did a fine job with his team this year, but ultimately I feel like he's ready and he's done his time.
Thanks for stopping by.
Sure.
That's Rod Johnson, state football editor of VirginiaPreps.com. Check out his work. And for Rod and Matt White, I'm Matthew Hatfield. We'll talk to you next time on the Cox 11 Sports Report.